Good morning, students. I hope I'm audible. Welcome to Ekcel Academy's CSEET crash course. Before we proceed towards the actual crash course, there is a quick announcement. If you have taken up CSEET course and you wish to get the best coaching or teaching, I would suggest take a look at our mentorship program. So you can check it out on the website, that is excelacademy.com, the link for which is in the description. So there are so many goodies there, like you can take up quizzes, mock tests, and lots of notes and updates available. And with respect to this mentorship program, what we do is someone from our team will be constantly monitoring your progress with respect to the online classes, as to whether you're watching those classes and if you're following or not following. So they'll be constantly in touch just to make sure that your confidence is not lost, because this is a daunting course. It's not like the degree courses, so it requires lots of focus and concentration, and we will do our best to make sure that you have those too while preparing for the exams. So of course it goes without saying that in Ekcel Academy all the classes will be in English. We will have both live classes as well as recorded classes. So already we have prepared recorded classes for all the subjects. On top of that, there will be doubt clearing sessions for each of those subjects through live classes. And there is something unique which we do is study with me group discussions, wherein someone will be studying, they'll be live and they'll be just studying for hours, and you can just, so that you don't feel alone, because this is a course, or any professional course for that matter, makes one very lonely, because you feel like rest of your friends have already got the job, or they have taken up some other post-graduation course, whereas you are doing this alone. That's a natural feeling, but at least to get rid of that feeling to some extent, someone from our team will also be studying, so that you can study along with them. Anyway, so I would suggest do take a look, visit our website, sign up for that thing, which is free, of course. So then you can at least take the benefit of things which I mentioned are free. Okay, now that the announcement is done, let's move on to the subject, that is business environment. So yesterday we had finished lesson 6. Let's move on to lesson 7. This is the business environment part. We have already completed the economics part. I would still suggest please go through our previous revision sessions on the channel itself. What we have done is we have already covered these questions which the institute releases every month. So it is called CSEET e-bulletin. That's what the institute used to call it. I don't know what's the name now. So in that bulletin, the institute releases questions for every subject from CSEET. So solve those. I mean, we have already solved. Have a look at those questions. So that should give you some idea as to what kind of questions the institute will ask in the exam. So now let's see what is in store for us here. Business business organization has to interact and transact with its environment, okay, in and around its business basically. Hence both the business and environment are totally interrelated and mutually interdependent. Okay, this is important. Business environment refers to those aspects of the surroundings business, those aspects surrounding the business enterprise which affect or influence its operations and determine its effectiveness. So it's a very wide definition. I mean, the scope of this definition is wide, because they say business environment refers to those aspects surrounding business enterprise. There are so many things surrounding business enterprise. Of course, this is not just the physical surrounding. It is encompassing all those aspects which will affect or influence its operations and determine its effectiveness. So that is what business environment is all about. Of course, we have a couple of definitions there. You can read those later. It's always changing and is uncertain, because we don't have any control over it. We can hardly control our own business. So the environment is something which we cannot definitely control. So therefore, it is always uncertain. It is because of the dynamism of environment, of course. Yes, it is so dynamic, that is ever changing, that we can't really control. For example, if I have to give an example, Nokia at one point of time was in fact the number one company when it came to mobile phones. So everyone aspired to buy a Nokia handset, but all of a sudden, for no fault of Nokia, of course, there was some fault, of course, but the problem here was Nokia was doing its business. It was manufacturing phones. It was able to sell millions of phones. But the problem was the business environment, or rather the industry in which it was disrupted by a new player, that is the Apple. All of a sudden, due to the dynamic nature of the business environment, Nokia had to suffer. Because now, suddenly, people aspire to buy Apple phone instead of Nokia phones. So that is one of the ways in which environment affects any business. It is a sum total of all the factors outside the control of management of the company. What your competitor does is not under your control. What Apple did was not under Nokia's control, but what was under Nokia's control was it could have anticipated and innovated. They didn't do that, and they had to suffer. So, which are constantly changing, and they carry with them both opportunities and risks. Of course, with changing business environment, there will be opportunities as well. For example, if you look at Paytm, so once the demonetization was announced, so Paytm actually celebrated. Why did they celebrate? Because they realized that with demonetization, there will be less and less use of cash and more usage of online money. Back then, that was the popular method to make the payment. I mean, you had to transfer the money to the wallet, that is Paytm's wallet, and then you could make the payment anywhere as long as the QR code or whatever that facility they had. But it was slowly picking up. They were trying, they were advertising, marketing, etc. But with demonetization, something which was outside of their control, business environment, all of a sudden, there was a huge demand for Paytm's services. Now again, this is an opportunity. And likewise, there was a huge demand for services like PhonePe, Google Pay, etc. All those UPI apps. So it can be positive, it can be negative as well. Like Nokia, even BlackBerry had to suffer because all of a sudden people did not want any button phones. BlackBerry's famous, or rather USP, was its QWERTY keyboard. So you could type the whole letter on the phone. That was their USP. But now with touch, no one wanted to use the buttons at all. So for no fault of BlackBerry, through the changing business environment, they had to suffer. Okay, anyway, let's move on. Business environment encompasses all those factors that affect a company's operation and includes customers, competitors, stakeholders, those who have an interest in the business. Suppliers again comes under stakeholders. Industry trends, regulations, and other government activities. Then we have also social and economic factors, technological developments, etc. So these are a few of the most important aspects which are part of business environment. When we say business environment, we are not only referring to customers, not only referring to competitors, stakeholders, suppliers, industry trends. So all of these things put together, how is it affecting our business? So thus, business environment refers to the external environment and includes all factors outside the firm. So it should be outside the firm. If it is inside the firm, then it will be under the firm's control. Otherwise, then there is no dynamism there. Whereas here, since it is beyond the firm, there is no way you can control, and hence the dynamism of business environment. Let's see the features and factors influencing business environment. All the external factors, they say. Business environment includes all the forces, institutions, and factors which directly or indirectly affect the business organization. We have seen this. Specific and general forces. They also include specific forces such as investors, customers, competitors, and suppliers. Sometimes what happens, a new investor might force you to do things which you had never anticipated. Let's suppose that you need money. Let's assume that someone like Byju's, they didn't have any investors. Let's assume, it's just an assumption. They didn't have any investor in the initial days. It was all led by the internal management of the company. But one fine day they realized if they had enough money, maybe they could expand their reach. So what did they do? They invited investors to invest in their company. So then came investors who came with their own big fat checks. But someone who comes with big fat check will definitely not sit and watch. So they will start dictating as well. So that is the thing which comes with the investors. So that is also part of the business environment. Next, we have customers, competitors, suppliers. We already seen what happens with competitors in case of Apple, BlackBerry and Nokia. Same thing with suppliers. If all of a sudden your supplier who was supplying a material to you doesn't supply the material, then what will you do? In fact, there is this unique I don't know if it's there only in mobile industry, maybe it's there in other industries as well. For instance, Apple relies a lot on Samsung, but at the same time Apple's competitor is Samsung. They purchase display from Samsung. They outsource one of their chip processing to Samsung. So all these things are done by Samsung for Apple, but still they are competitors. So that means Samsung is one of the suppliers of Apple, at the same time competitor of Apple. Now Samsung might do something. All of a sudden, if Samsung realizes that they themselves need all these displays and they themselves need all these chips, or maybe something to do with the chip, then they would rather first serve their company and then think of their competitors or clients. So in such a circumstance also, your business will be affected. So then there are other factors like non-human or general forces such as social, legal, technological, political. So political we have seen in many cases. All of a sudden, if the government decides to ban something, let's say you are into lottery business, then government decides to ban lottery, saying this is gambling, so we do not need this. Then because of that, your business is affected completely because of the technological changes. Let's say yours is a firm which was in developing flash technology. So back then we had this Adobe Flash. So all the websites were mostly using flash technology. All of a sudden Apple said we will no longer use flash. We will use our own technology on the websites, because flash is slowing down the website. So therefore we will never support flash on our browsers. So the moment Apple said so, all of a sudden there was dip in the usage of flash. So technological changes will also affect your business. Interrelation, let's see what it is. All the forces and factors of business environment are interrelated to each other. Okay, these are all obvious things. Okay, anyway, for example, with the inclination of youth towards Western culture, the demand for fast food is increasing. Again, looks like typical bullshit, but let's see. Example with inclination. Okay, the example here is with inclination of youth towards Western culture. Western culture has got nothing to do with fast food. It's just that we are lazy and we want food. That's all. I don't know if it is only because of Western culture. The demand for fast food is increasing. Fast food, pizza, burger, etc. Of course, to some extent there is influence of Western culture, but anyway, that's not the only thing. Then uncertainty. But how is that related to business environment? Maybe you are in food industry and you are into traditional food. So then all of a sudden, because the youth are influenced by Western culture, your product's demand has come down. That is what I can surmise from that. Anyway, let's move on. Uncertainty. It is very difficult to predict the changes of business environment. Always the case. As environment is changing very fast, for example in IT, fashion industry, frequent and fast changes are taking place. Very fast. For example, in IT, fashion industry, frequent and fast changes are taking place. Yeah, this is of course true, because if you don't adapt to the changes in the industry. They have given two industries, IT and fashion, which apparently are fast changing industries. So if that is the case, and if you are in that industry, then there is no way you can sit and watch others move ahead, and you will be stagnant there. Next, dynamic. Business environment is highly flexible and keeps changing. So we should definitely give an award to institute for innovating different ways to repeat the same bullshit over and over. So this is one way the institute gets very creative. Anyway, business environment is highly flexible and it keeps changing. It is not static or rigid. That is why it is essential to monitor and scan the business environment continuously. Blah 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 blah. Same thing getting repeated. Next, complex. It is very difficult to understand the impact of business environment on the companies. Although it is easy to scan the environment, but it's very difficult to know how these changes will influence. Okay, unless those changes hits you, it might sometimes be very difficult. Because, for example, Apple launched, or rather showcased their first iPhone sometime in June 2007, I believe. So you saw that there was a new company in mobile phones. Of course, Apple was not a new company, but when it came to mobile phones, it was a new company. They launched something in June, but it took some time for Nokia and BlackBerry to fully realize the impact. Probably they thought people might not end up buying this. Of course, it is all attractive, fine, etc. But will people really buy this? Maybe that's what they thought, and they were caught napping. So now what? Where are they? Nokia is in nowhere. So is BlackBerry. So of course Nokia tried to go Microsoft way. They launched the Windows phone. Then it didn't click. Then they went back to, then they went to Android. So now they're manufacturing Android phones, but they're not a big company anymore, in the mobile world. Some time change may be minor, but it might have large sometime. Okay, oh my goodness. I don't think anyone even proofreads our material. Sometimes change may be minor, but it might have large impact. For example, change in government policy to increase the tax rate by 5% may affect the income of the company by a large amount. Of course, this is the case. Let's say all of a sudden the government puts your product from GST 5% to GST 18%. All of a sudden, you will have to bear the burden of this, because for a fact that your customers will definitely not pay that extra 13%. So if they are not going to pay, who else will pay? You will have to pay. So this is something which will impact business in a huge way. Relativity. The impact of business environment may differ from company to company or country to country. Okay, that's all fine. So they have again given the pictorial representation of business environment, wherein they say there are different factors. Legal factors, political, economical, technological, social factors. We have seen all those. Let's move on. Again, the same thing is getting repeated. Let's see. Okay, they have given a few detailed examples. Let's hope they're good examples. Let's see. The political environment affects the economic environment of business. Legislators at local, state and federal levels, I am very sure they have copied from US, because in India we don't say federal levels. They have copied from some US textbook, because when the moment they say federal level, it is evident that it's a US based textbook. Because for us it is center or union level. Okay, may provide incentives or tax breaks to companies, or they can impose regulations that restrict business transactions. Of course, yes, legislators are those the elected representatives basically. In the latter case, for example, if a political body states that a company must include a certain chemical in its product, the cost of the product differs. But why would a political body say a company should include a certain chemical or not include? Of course we know, but why would they say they should include a chemical in its product? Anyway, so basically what they're trying to say is a political party can also affect your business. Of course, yes. Anyway, let's move on. Economic environment. The larger economic environment of a society is a factor that can affect the company's business environment. During recession, consumers spend less on optional items such as cars and appliances. Of course, yes. So now, even during COVID, at least during the first wave of COVID, our economy had crashed, mainly because people were saving their money so that they could use it during COVID, because no one knew till what date or till when would this last. So when that was the case, they didn't want to take chances, so they did not indulge in luxury buying like cars or appliances, etc. They could be postponed because that was not a necessity. Everyone was at home, either from working from home or not working from home. So when that was the case, why would anyone buy luxury items? So that was the thing. Social factors that affect the economic environment of a business are the cultural influences of the time. Okay, for example, they have given this bell bottom. This was famous, I'm told, in 70s, bell bottom shaped pants like this. So then all of a sudden it went out of fashion, because then we had these straight leg pants, all the slim fit ones. So then all of a sudden all those manufacturers who manufactured bell bottom pants had to change their design. So that is also there. Because of social changes, your business might get affected. Then there is technological factors. Again, we have seen this. Innovation and technology affect business environments. As technology advances, a business is forced to keep pace. For example, when computers were first invented, they were the size of a room. Can you even imagine? Today, the computer can be held within our palm. That is, of course, the mobile phones. They are no less than computers, right? Users were forced to employ punch cards to perform basic functions. You have to just punch in and punch out. Today, computers that are much more powerful can fit into the palm of a hand, of course, yes. Businesses that do not keep up with technology risk increased cost of production and higher prices. Of course, this is evident. Look at SBI, for instance. It's a company, of course, bank, but still a company with huge amount of resources, but still they're not keeping up with the technological advancements. For example, if you visit SBI bank, 9 out of 10 times the cashier there will tell you server is down, we can't work. So obviously that will affect their working, which will in turn affect the customer. So at some point of time this will trickle down and customers will move from SBI to other banks, because SBI is not keeping up with the advancement of technology. Anyway, legal factors. Often business will need to change how it operates for legal reasons. Already I give you an example, that is the lottery. It's political as well as a legal thing. This is often done when a company's lawyers anticipate a change in legislation, or it may be due to lawsuits already filed or anticipated. Okay, change in legislation meaning, so if you are in, let's say, in the business of betting, online betting, now your lawyer tells you, we have reason to believe that very soon this online betting might be banned by the government. You better shift from this to some other business, or you make sure that you have enough resources to shift or do something so that your entire capital is not stuck here itself. Now, what is the example which they have given? If a part in a machine is found to be defective, the company may need to issue a recall. The same thing happened recently with some electric vehicle. They had to recall the entire set because their battery started exploding. In fact, the father and daughter had died when one of the company's battery exploded in the night. If other companies in the same industry are being sued over something like a data breach of confidential information, a business may need to change how information is collected and stored. So this is something which always happens. Databases leak for various reasons. They leak. So when you see databases of your competitors leaking left, right, and center, then you should be cautious. You cannot expect that to hit you, and then you cannot start working on that. Okay, now we are shifting our focus from business environment to ease of doing business index. by World Bank for India. So now ease of doing business means how easy or not is doing business in a particular country. So for that they have some index. Let's see what is the position of our country. In the World Bank's latest Doing Business Report, DBR, India has recorded a jump of 23 positions against its rank of 100 in 2017 to be placed now at 77th rank among 190 countries assessed by the World Bank. India's leap of 23 ranks in the ease of doing business ranking is significant considering that last year India had improved its rank by 30 places. Okay, this is in fact a significant feat because year before, that is in 2018, they say we had improved 30 places. So now in 2019 we have improved 23 places. So that is a significant jump, so for which all the stakeholders, especially the government, should be commended. So India has improved its rank by 53 positions in the last 2 years and 65 positions in the last 4 years. Not a big achievement in the last 4 years, but definitely a huge achievement in the last 2 years. So should check what exactly is the position now. Anyway, of course, in spite of this, we are still somewhere in 70s. Not a big deal because not a big thing. Why? Not a big thing in the sense whatever we have achieved is not sufficient. Basically, that's what I'm trying to say. In spite of all this, movement in the upward movement in the business environment, or rather ease of doing index, we still are placed at 77th rank, which is not good. In fact, if someone wants to invest or start a business, if they look at the DBR report, they will see India in the 77th place. Would they be like, oh, India is in 77th place, I should go to India and invest? Of course not. They'll be like, why should I go and do business there when it is in 77th position? So that's how they will think. They will not see, okay, India has improved by 23 points or 30 positions. So that is something which we have to keep in mind. Let me just check what is the current status. Doing business report. Okay, I have just opened Wikipedia here. Okay, there is some kind of problem with the Doing Business report. In fact, I'll give you the latest update. In September 2021, the World Bank announced that it would be discontinuing the Doing Business report following the release of an independent report detailing the specifics of the 2020 and 2018 irregularities, including detailed explanation of how senior leaders at the bank manipulated data and pressured experts to change rankings and methodology to improve scores for certain countries. So basically they are looking at countries like China and Saudi Arabia. They wanted to do this data manipulation, and therefore now World Bank has announced that it will be discontinuing this Doing Business report. So we will no longer have this report. So that is unfortunate, but still let me just check the country status in the last Doing Business report. Okay, according to this report, India, at least back then, stood at 63rd place, which is still an improvement over its previous 77th position. So we are doing something good to improve our position, and the World Bank has mentioned that in its remarks that it is easy to do business in India. There are different types of classification: easy, very easy, medium, then there is below average. That's all. These are the different types of classification. So we are grouped in easy category. At least we were when that report was active. So right now that report is no longer being issued. So that is the status of the report. Okay, let's move on. So they have given few indicators as to how we have changed in various what is it, divisions inside that doing business report. For example, construction permits, there is a huge positive change. Then trading across borders also has become easy. Starting a business is still not so easy. Then getting credit, oh my, not so good, I believe. Getting electricity, enforcing contracts, I think we are horrible then. Overall rank 77, at least now. When the last report was active, we were in 63rd position and we were under easy classification. Okay, very easy is the ideal, then there is medium, and then there is below average. Okay, so these are the classifications and we were here. Good. Okay, they also mentioned India has recorded the highest improvement in 2 years by any large country since 2011. So that is interesting. So again, they are talking about construction permits, etc. But what I find it interesting is the institute hasn't thought it fit to remove this entire portion now that it makes no sense to include doing business report when World Bank itself has withdrawn, stating specifically the manipulated data of 2018 report. We may not have manipulated the data. Countries like China and Saudi Arabia are supposed to have manipulated, but still, when this report is no longer relevant, it doesn't make sense to have the report in the syllabus. But since when has institute batted for relevancy anyway? So trading across borders also we have improved to some extent. Okay, starting business, at least this we can see what exactly is the state. Procedures reduced from 11 to 10, big change. Just one procedure has been dropped. And from 12 to 10 in Mumbai. Still someone has to do all this to start a business. Time reduced from 30 to 16 days in Delhi and 29.5 to 17 days in Mumbai. Of course, all these are subjective. Sometimes it may not take 16 days, it may take less than that. But sometimes it may take more than 16 days also in Delhi. PAN, TAN didn't know much with SPICE making a single form for company incorporation. Earlier it was apply separately for all this. Now they say with SPICE forms you can apply for all this once and for all. No requirement of inspection for registration under shops and establishment in Mumbai. Out of all the places, in Mumbai we have exemption, but what about the rest of the country? Distance to frontier improved from 75.4 to 80.96. Don't know what it is. Access to credit, this is very important. Rank improved from 29 to 22. See, without credit access, it's very difficult for anyone to do the business. You cannot always have your own money, so you usually borrow, then it gets circulated, etc. Distance to frontier improved, they say. Strength of legal rights improved from 8 to 9. Okay. Secured creditors will now be repaid first during business liquidation, hence given priority over other claims. Earlier also they were ones to be paid first now. Access to electricity. Procedures reduced from 5 to 3 in Delhi and 5 to 4 in Mumbai. Okay. Again, they talk about the same thing over and over. So let's not worry. Okay, let's move on to something else now, apart from ease of doing business or doing business report, which no longer is active, by the way. Starting a business. Okay, one of the important changes in the Companies Act, or rather Companies Amendment Act 2015, is the minimum capital requirement for public and private company has been eliminated. No longer required. There is no minimum capital as such. Introduced simplified pro forma for incorporating company electronically. So they call it in short SPICE, by merging 5 different applications. So we have to apply separately for name reservation, company incorporation, direct identification, permanent account number, and TAN. So now all those things got merged and there's only one single application. Introduced an e-form agile, okay, application for registration of goods and service tax identification number. So if you want to apply for GST registration, you'll have to use this. Then we have states. Okay, for all these registration we have only one form now. That is good. You don't have to apply separately. Any applicant, if he wants to register for any of these bodies, that is PF or ESI or GST, he can fill the form in Agile and get registration at the time of company incorporation itself. So while incorporating the company, get it registered for all these things. Launch a new and simplified web-based run reserve unique name for reserving a name. Okay, if at all you want to reserve some name for your company, you can do that. This also has removed the requirement to use a digital signature during name reservation, thankfully. Otherwise, someone had to get DSC just for sake of name reservation. Now you can get your company's name reserved without DSC. Incorporation fee reduced to 0 for companies with authorized capital up to 15 lakhs. That is a very welcome change, because otherwise this incorporation fee itself would be so high that it would discourage people from incorporating company, starting a company. The requirement to use a physical PAN has been eliminated. Okay. PAN and TAN are mentioned in the certificate of incorporation, which is considered as sufficient proof for PAN and TAN. Fine then. Good developments. Online and common registration for EPFO, that is PF, and ESI is provided on Shram Svidha portal. Okay. Registration under Mumbai Shops and Establishment Act are provided in real time without any cost and any inspection. Again, they're talking about Mumbai. It's not about Mumbai alone, no? I don't know why Mumbai is specifically mentioned here. Eliminated the requirement of bank account details for GST registration. That is good. Okay. Now dealing with construction permits we will not get into that because this is mostly Mumbai and Delhi. So let's not go there. Getting electricity, again Delhi and Mumbai, not relevant for us. Why? Because India is not only Delhi or Mumbai, no? So if you make any changes in Delhi or Mumbai, how does it even matter? For someone sitting in, let's say, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, etc. Getting credit, okay, this is universal, I guess. Secured creditors are paid first during business liquidation and hence have priority over other claims such as labor and tax now. Okay, they have priority over tax as well now. Paying taxes, let's see. 17 indirect central and state taxes have been replaced with a single indirect tax called GST. This we already know. Previously we had different types of taxes, Sen VAT, VAT, etc. Every state had its own VAT, then it was difficult to reconcile and all that. Now it is far more easy to do all this. Corporate income tax has been reduced from 30 to 25% for companies with a turnover up to 250 crores. This we have already seen, I guess yesterday only we saw this. Electronic system for payment of social security contributions have been introduced during enabling easier return payment. Okay. Making payment of EPF has been made mandatory electronically. Fine. Okay, there are certain improvements which they have done. Trade across borders. Let's see what exactly they have done. Time and cost to export and import has been reduced through various initiatives, including implementation of electronic sealing of containers, upgradation of port infrastructure, and allowing electronic submission of supporting documents with digital signatures. Very important change, because if it is not done electronically, then if it has to be done physically, you will have to invest manpower there. You may or you may not have, but on top of that, more than investing manpower, it will take a lot of time for you to do all this. So whoever it is, they will slow down the entire process of trading across borders. With this, now trade, can actually move ahead quickly. Advanced bill of entry. Okay. Enhancement of risk-based inspections for both imports and exports, whereby only about 5% of the goods are physically inspected. This is very important. If you start inspecting everything, 1 out of 3, then it will be very difficult. Of course, they have done other few improvements. You can just read it all. It's all facts. That's all. Enforcing contracts, we still lack here. National Judicial Data Grid has been introduced, which makes it possible to generate case measurement report on local courts. Okay, but how will it enforce contracts? Commercial Courts Act 2015 has been amended to reduce pecuniary jurisdiction of commercial courts from 1 crore to 3 lakhs to establish commercial courts at district level. Okay. So they can take up disputes from 3 lakh itself instead of 1 crore, which was the earlier limit. Fine. Then we have IBC 2016. It has been adopted, and that introduced a reorganization procedure for corporate debtors and facilitated continuation of the debtors business during insolvency proceedings. That means if you are one of the parties who have lent money, so then you can still have some hope of getting the money back with the introduction of IBC. Of course, the practical difficulties are still there, but whatever it is an improvement. Time-bound resolution process is done under IBC, and liquidation is the last resort. So they don't immediately jump and try to liquidate the company, but they will try to make sure that without even liquidating, if we are able to pay the creditors, they will try to do that. So implementation of reforms by states and union territories, again they have given few statistics. Please read that. There is nothing much for me to explain here. Okay, that's all here with respect to business environment. There is one more chapter, a small one. Let's see what is there. Key government institutions. It's mostly facts based. There is nothing much to explain. Let's still have a look at the key government institutions. Let me just see how many pages are these. Okay, not many. Let's try to see what exactly we have. Niti Aayog. Of course, this is the famous institute which actually replaced the Planning Commission. To evolve a shared vision of national development priorities, sectors and strategies with the active involvement of states. All these are Babu speak. Babu speak means the government speak, basically the officers who are interested with coming up with something to explain all these new initiatives or schemes or organizations. So they come up with this fancy words or statements. When it comes to reality, it may not always be the case. To foster cooperation, federalism through structured support initiatives and mechanisms with the states on a continuous basis. Oh my goodness. Recognizing that strong states make a strong nation. Yeah, of course. We see that very much in practice. To develop mechanisms to formulate credible plans at the village level and aggregate these progressively at higher levels of government. Okay, do that. To ensure on areas that are specifically referred to it that the interests of national security are incorporated in economic strategy and policy, whatever that means. To pay special attention to the sections of our society that may be at risk of not benefiting adequately from economic progress. We will pay special attention to you because you are not been benefiting adequately from economic progress. Now that attention has been paid, we'll move to something else. To design strategic and long-term policy and program frameworks and initiatives and monitor their progress and their efficacy. Okay, all these are of course the job of Niti Aayog. The lessons learned through monitoring and feedback will be used for making innovative improvements, including necessary mid-course corrections. Mid-course correction means you have done something, you have started something, then you realize that you are not progressing in the way you thought you would be, or maybe you have deviated too far ahead from your path. So in such a case, you can do these mid-course corrections. That means halfway through your job, you can still do. To provide advice and encourage partnerships between key stakeholders and national and international like-minded think tanks, as well as educational and policy research institutions. Okay. Provide advice and encourage their partnerships. To create a knowledge, innovation, and entrepreneurial support system through a collaborative community of national and international experts, practitioners, and other partners. To offer a platform for resolution of intersectoral and interdepartmental issues in order to accelerate the implementation of the development agenda. Okay. To maintain a state-of-the-art resource center, be a repository of research on good governance and best practices in sustainable and equitable development, as well as help their determination to stakeholders. Okay. Basically, they will do good. That's all. So let's look at the features. Is developing itself as a state-of-the-art resource center with the necessary resources, knowledge, and skills that will enable it to act with speed, promote research and innovation, provide strategic policy vision for the government, and deal with contingent issues. Did they miss out anything? Okay. Niti Ayog's entire gamut of activities can be divided into 4 main heads. Let's see what exactly they do. Design policy and program framework. Structure, basically, like what you're supposed to do. Foster cooperative federalism between states. You make sure that the states and central relationship are fine, but it doesn't seem to be the case. Monitoring and evaluation. Once you design policy and program framework, you just don't sit back and enjoy. You also monitor and evaluate. Think tank and knowledge and innovation hub. Basically, hub for all those people who support you. Okay. Anyway, the different verticals of Niti provide the requisite coordination and support framework for Niti to carry out its mandate. The list of verticals as below. Verticals. Vertical. So that is the business. We have different verticals now. One vertical talks about agriculture. That is our focus. The other vertical is focusing on health. You also would have heard business people saying we have so many verticals. Like we do this, we do that, different verticals. Okay. If there is only one, then it will be horizontal. So then health, women and child development, then there is governance and research. So these are the different vertical. Oh my goodness, there are so many different verticals. So no need to remember all this. Okay, it doesn't really make sense. Then we have sustainable action for transforming human capital. Again, just remember all these acronyms. There are too many acronyms in this chapter, so you better remember. Then we have this PFEL. Okay, no, that is not important, but this is important. SATH. Okay, let's move on to Ministry of Corporate Affairs. That stuff, it's all facts based. You can just read it and get the facts. Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Okay, the ministry is primarily concerned with administration of Companies Act 2013 and the previous act, then the Limited Liability Partnership Act and other allied acts and rules and regulations framed thereunder, mainly for regulating the functioning of the corporate sector in accordance with the law. The ministry is also responsible for administering the Competition Act. Okay, to prevent practices having adverse effect on competition, to promote and sustain competition in markets, to protect the interest of consumers through commissions set up under the Act. Competition Commission, you would have seen, if you go back and check few of our earlier videos, you will get to know a lot about this Competition Commission. You can check out, just search for Competition Commission on Ekcel Academy. I'm sure you will find a few videos there. Besides, it exercises supervision over the 3 professional bodies, namely ICAI, ICSI and ICAI. Again, Institute of Cost Accountants, the other ICA, which are constituted under 3 separate acts of the Parliament for proper and orderly growth of the professions concerned. The ministry also has the responsibility of carrying out the functions of the central government relating to the administration of the Partnership Act. Oh my, it's a significant ministry. Basically, they are overseeing all these bodies. The affiliated officers of Ministry of Corporate Affairs are as under, which are those: Serious Fraud Investigation Office, okay, Competition Commission of India. Then we have Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs, so that also comes under that. Okay, there is nothing much apart from this. So let's move on to Securities and Exchange Board of India. Is a statutory body entrusted with the responsibility to regulate the Indian capital markets. That is something which we have known since a long time. It was established in 1992. Sebi has regional offices in Delhi, Kolkata, Ahmedabad, along with local regional offices across the country. The objectives of Sebi is to ensure that Indian capital market works in a systematic manner. See, whatever happens in NSE, BSE, National Stock Exchange, Bombay Stock Exchange, and various other stock exchanges, they all come under the Sebi Institute. Sebi will be monitoring what exactly you are doing or not doing. But you can't always trust Sebi. You would have heard of the recent case involving Chitra Ramakrishna. So she was the NSE head, and this was co-location scam happened under her watch, and Sebi was happily watching that. Anyway, let's move on. Functions of Sebi: issuers of the securities. Okay, they issue the securities. Protects the interests of traders and investors. If you buy and sell shares, you will become a trader. If you are investing in shares, you become the investor. So your interests are protected by Sebi. Financial intermediaries. They act as financial intermediaries between those who need financial intermediaries. So, because from where do we buy stocks? Companies want to sell their stocks. We want to buy their stock. So how do we do? Through intermediaries, to brokers, and who will facilitate all that? Sebi. Quasi-judicial. Quasi-judicial means they don't have judicial authority like courts, but they are not without authority either. So that's why it's called quasi-judicial authority. Then let's move to Reserve Bank of India. When was this established? See, in this chapter, when it comes to all these government institutions, I would suggest try to remember the dates, or rather the years in which these institutions were established. So that is something which may come up in the exam. Okay. So RBI was established on 1st of April 1935 through the Reserve Bank of India Act. Main functions of RBI: formulates, implements, and monitors the monetary policy. Nice. Maintaining price stability while keeping in mind the objective of growth. We will try to maintain the stability of the price, but also we will keep an eye on the growth. So that's what RBI says, or it says it will do. Regulator and supervisor of the financial system. Okay. Manager of foreign exchange. It manages the foreign exchange through FEMA, that is Foreign Exchange Management Act 1999. The objective is to facilitate external trade and payment and promote orderly development and maintenance of foreign exchange market in India. Issuer of currency, this is very important. This we know. Who issues currency? RBI, of course. You would have seen RBI governor's declaration saying, I promise to pay the bearer sum of rupees so and so. Development role, okay, all this nonsense. Okay. It has 27 regional offices, most of them in state capitals, and 4 sub-offices. So that is fine. Next, Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India, IBB. Okay. So it is something, an ecosystem which is responsible for the implementation of the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, which we talked about earlier. Nothing much is there here, so don't worry too much. Then there is National Company Law Tribunal, something which really affects us. So the government constituted NCLT under section 408 of the Companies Act. with effect from 1st June 2016. Important. So they have, it's again a kind of a judicial body. What do? NCLT was intended to be introduced in the Indian legal system in 2002. Oh my goodness. They intended to introduce in 2002, and finally when did they actually introduce? 2016. Look at the pace in which the government works. My goodness. So there was some litigation with respect to the constitutional validity, meaning people were challenging the authority of NCLT, saying this does not have the authority to do this. So therefore it took so much of time, and finally after so many years it was notified. It is a quasi-judicial authority incorporated for dealing with corporate disputes that are of civil nature. So quasi-judicial, not fully judicial, but at least it can take decisions, give judgments for disputes that are of civil nature. Okay. NCLT works on the lines of a normal court of law in the country and is obliged to fairly and without any biases determine the facts of each case and decide with matters in accordance with the principles of natural justice. Okay, just like any other court, this also has no bias. Major functions of NCLT: registration of companies. The New Companies Act has enabled questioning the legitimacy of companies because of specific procedural errors during incorporation and registration. If you have made some mistake, we can question the very existence of your company. And NCLT has been empowered in taking several steps, from cancelling the registration of the company to dissolving any company because you did not incorporate your company properly. There was one spelling mistake. Your director's initials were not there. I'm just giving an example. It may not be the reality. It may not be reality. The tribunal could even render the liability or charge of members to unlimited. Oh my goodness, that would be dangerous. So the whole point of starting a company would be gone in a second. Transfer of shares, deposits, power to investigate, all these things are there in under the powers of NCLT. Freezing assets of the company as well, they can freeze the assets. Basically it will try to protect the interest of the investors as well as public basically. Then we have National Company Law Appellate Tribunal as well. Just like NCLT, we have NCLAT, because if at all you are not happy with the decision of the tribunal, then we can go and appeal with NCLAT. Okay. If you are not happy with NCLAT also, then we can only approach the Supreme Court. That means NCLT is bypassing the High Court. Yeah, that's all for now. So we are done with the economics and business environment part. So we'll be moving to other subjects. We have legal aptitude, logical reasoning, then what else? Yeah, that's all I believe. So business environment is done, economics is done. So we'll try to finish legal aptitude and logical reasoning as soon as possible. Let's meet again on today's Friday, right? Monday morning, 7:30. Thank you. So before we complete the class, let me just remind you that if you are studying for CS course, please do sign up on excelacademy.com for regular updates about the course. Sometimes what we do is we don't make videos for every update which we put up on our website. So you may not find corresponding video on the YouTube channel. Of course, we try to update YouTube as frequently as possible, but sometimes it may not be possible for various reasons. So in that case, you will definitely get the update on the website itself. So please do check out our website. Anyway, it's free of cost. You don't have to pay anything for registering there. So thank you. See you.